In 1969, the United States launched the Apollo 11 spacecraft to the moon for the first time. On July 20, 1969, hundreds of millions of viewers around the world witnessed through black and white television screens as Apollo 11's mission commander, Neil Armstrong, dressed in a white spacesuit, stepped out of the lunar module and left the first human footprints on the moon, fulfilling humanity's dream of moon landing. However, in December 1972, after Apollo 17 successfully carried out the sixth manned lunar mission and returned to Earth, the United States officially announced the termination of the entire Apollo moon landing program. What's even stranger is that the Soviet Union, the USS competitor in the space race, also coincidentally ceased its own moon landing program around the same time. And so, half a century has passed, and humanity has not returned to the moon since. Why was the moon landing program suddenly terminated? To this question, NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, has never provided a satisfying answer. According to the US government, due to financial constraints starting in the 1970s, NASA was forced to cancel moon missions. However, this explanation has not convinced many. Media reports suggest that the US once deliberately concealed certain information about the moon landings. For example, during the Apollo 11 mission, a photo was taken showing astronauts discovering more than 20 human-like footprints on the moon's surface. In his autobiography, Neil Armstrong, the first man to set foot on the moon, stated that during the journey back to Earth after his moonwalk in 1969, he had a real sensation of being watched by an extraterrestrial civilization. He also claimed that his teammates saw a UFO that suddenly disappeared before their eyes. Before Apollo 11's landing, many strange phenomena had already been recorded. For instance, on the way to the moon, astronauts saw an unusual object ahead. At first, they thought it was the Saturn IV rocket booster. So one astronaut sent a message to the ground control center to confirm. To their surprise, ground control told them the Saturn IV booster was nowhere near them. It was 6,000 miles away. When the astronauts viewed the object through binoculars, it appeared L-shaped. Armstrong described it as like an open suitcase, and through a sextant, it looked cylindrical. Another astronaut, Buzz Aldrin, said, "We also saw several small objects pass by. There was a bit of vibration, and then we saw a brighter object fly past." On July 20th, when Aldrin entered the lunar module to perform final system checks, two UFOs suddenly appeared. One was larger and brighter and moved at incredible speed, flying parallel in front of them before disappearing, then reappearing seconds later. A beam of light suddenly connected the two objects, then they separated again and vanished upwards at great speed. Just before the astronauts were about to officially land on the moon, the control center suddenly called out, "What's that?" Mission Control calling Apollo 11. Armstrong responded astonishingly, "These things are huge, oh my God. You wouldn't believe it. I tell you, there are other spacecraft out here, lined up on the far side of the crater. They are on the moon, and they're watching us." At that point, the radio signal cut out. Actually, Apollo 11 was not the only Apollo spacecraft to encounter UFOs. Records indicate that on November 24, 1968, Apollo 8, while surveying potential landing sites, encountered a massive UFO, estimated at 10 square miles in size. However, it was gone on their second orbit. Apollo 10 also encountered an unknown object while 50,000 feet above the moon, which approached them. This incident was even filmed. In 1973, NASA publicly released some results from the moon missions. In a secret statement, NASA noted that all 25 astronauts involved in the Apollo moon missions encountered UFOs above the moon. Wernher von Braun, the former head of the US moon landing program, stated during his lifetime that several Apollo missions had been monitored by some mysterious extraterrestrial force. In 1979, Maurice Chatelain, NASA's former communications director, said that encountering UFOs above the moon was a common occurrence. he stated. All spacecraft have been followed by UFOs at some distance, or very close range, and every time this happens, the astronauts inform mission control. Years later, Armstrong revealed more, describing, "It was incredible. We were warned off. There is no question about it. There were structures or space stations on the moon. I can only say their spacecraft were far superior to ours. They were huge." Although NASA has never officially disclosed detailed accounts of astronauts encountering extraterrestrial life during moon missions, one notable point is worth mentioning. During the first press conference after the Apollo 11 crew returned to Earth, none of the three astronauts showed any joy on their faces. Isn't that puzzling? Logically, becoming the first humans in history to land on the moon should have been an exciting, even thrilling experience. Yet at the time, all three appeared deep in thought with heads down. What caused their somber moods? Could it be, as some speculate, that NASA ordered them not to speak about the existence of extraterrestrial life, causing their unusual demeanor? One theory suggests that NASA abandoned the moon landings due to the USS fear of the superior technology of extraterrestrial beings. What do you think? In fact, aside from the Apollo moon missions, other astronomical observations and studies have discovered strange phenomena on the moon. In 1975, psychic Ingo Swann was invited by the CIA to participate in a top-secret mission, remote viewing the moon. Using clairvoyant abilities, he observed the moon and claimed to see suspected structures and objects with glass domes on the far side of the moon. Later, his consciousness gradually entered one of the buildings. At that moment, CIA personnel noticed Swann breaking into a cold sweat and hurriedly asked what he saw. Swann replied that he saw some tall humanoid beings who were clearly aware they were being watched and were trying to locate him, which frightened him. Some UFO experts even directly claim that several extraterrestrial bases exist on the far side of the moon. In 2013, Japanese astronomers photographed several black objects, 500 to 1,000 meters long, moving rapidly across the moon's surface in a Z-shaped trajectory. The renowned American physicist Stephen Hawking repeatedly expressed concern for humanity's safety and warned people not to attempt moon landings, as extraterrestrial beings might exist on the moon's far side. Charles J. Byrne, a former NASA project participant who worked on lunar surface imagery, published a book titled Lunar Orbiter: Photographic Atlas of Near Side of the Moon. It included many early photos taken by lunar orbiters, some of which clearly showed long black structures scattered across various locations on the moon. As early as the night of July 6, 1954, the director of an observatory in Minnesota and his assistant observed a black line appearing inside the Piccolomini crater in the moon's southern hemisphere, which disappeared shortly after. On November 20, 1966, America's Orbiter 2, flying 46 kilometers above the Mare Tranquillitatis Basin, photographed several pyramid-like structures, estimated to be 15 to 25 meters tall. These structures were arranged geometrically and appeared lighter in color than the surrounding rocks and soil, suggesting they were not natural formations. Later, Soviet spacecraft also discovered these structures. On September 11, 1967, a group of astronomers known as the Montreal Group discovered a purple-edged black cloud over Mare Tranquillitatis. What does all this mean? Could it really be that some intelligent beings have established a base on the moon? Some say the moon is the perfect platform for extraterrestrials to study Earth. It's not too far away, and one side of the moon always faces the Earth. This means aliens could safely live on the moon's far side. Did you notice I said, one side always faces the Earth? Yes, that's how the moon rotates, and this characteristic has long baffled scientists. Back in 1969, when Apollo 11 was about to successfully land on the moon, many scientists felt relieved, believing that the Apollo program would help solve the mystery of the moon's origin. However, it turns out these scientists were celebrating too soon. The Apollo moon landings not only failed to provide the answers scientists had hoped for, but instead brought back countless new mysteries far exceeding what had existed before.
Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Share it, because some stories are meant to be discovered together. And stay curious. I'll see you in the next chapter.